So, can we just be completely honest about Bronny James? Um, like, I do want to talk about Bronny, and I have no like bad things to say of Bronny as a person. He seems like a nice kid. He is, and I don't mean not very good at basketball, because he's very clearly very good at basketball. He is closer to the level of a Division 3 basketball player than he is to the NBA. I don't think if you put Bronny James into NCAA Division 3 that he would be National Player of the Year. I don't. And I mean that. I don't think he would be the best player in D3. I don't think he would win the MVP if you put him in the Irish Superleague. He is as at this point in time, if he wanted to play pro, he would be playing low-level pro in Europe, not in the NBA. He's not a high-level European pro basketball player. I don't even think he's a pretty good G League player. I think he is a very, very, he is a below-average pro basketball player. If you take every professional basketball player in the world and rank them from worst to best, added a couple of thousand of them, he would be closer to the worst than the best. But yet, of the 450 players in the NBA, the 450 or so players in the league probably make up 450 of the best, I'll say 600 basketball players in the world. And there are thousands and thousands. He is up there with the worst players to ever sign a multi-year NBA deal. And anyone saying, Thanasis, the gap between, and I'm not, like, this is not even like a crazy statement to make. The gap between Thanasis, and I'm not going to say LeBron. Sorry, yeah, you know what? The gap between prime Thanasis and 40-year-old LeBron, the version of LeBron we have right now, is smaller than the gap between Thanasis and Bronny James. He was a 5-star recruit based on nothing. Like, genuinely. He was if his name was not LeBron James Jr., he's even doing what he did at Sierra Canyon, he is a 3-star recruit. At best. At best. Like, I said this when he was coming out of high school. He was if his name wasn't LeBron James Jr., he's a mid-major player. And a lot of people were saying, oh, he should have went to like Duquesne and had a bigger role. That would have been the worst thing for him to have had a bigger role, because it would have shown that he wasn't good enough. Like, he was poor on a bad USC team. He was bad, and I understand. Obviously, he came back from a cardiac arrest, but he wasn't that great beforehand. And obviously, we're comparing it to the NBA. People don't understand how big a gap there is between the NBA and just a really good basketball player. Because Bronny James, let's be real, this video gets, I don't know what it's going to do on this channel, because it's a brand new channel, but it's going to get somewhere around between 100 and 1,000 views. Bronny James, realistically, could probably cook every single one of us. Myself included. Like, I was a bad, like, when I say there are players, he wouldn't be the MVP of the Irish Superleague, I rode the bench in that league. So, he's 100, even at me at my best, he's about 100 times better than I am at the sport of basketball. The problem is he's a 6'1" 2 guard who's a mediocre defender, has mediocre athleticism, and can't shoot. Like, I fell for the hype. And I was like, you know what? Maybe someone who's used to being a role player will be able to just continue to do that. He just wasn't that good at basketball. And, like, one of the funniest points is that everyone talked about LeBron James or Bronny James being an NBA-level defender. He just apparently, it seems he was so bad on offense that people were like, actually, no, he's a defender. And I'm like, the more I look at him, the more I'm like, he's just not. He's not even good at that. Like, Bronny James is he's not the worst. I don't think he's the worst player to ever be drafted. But, like, he's like minus 20, 1 of 11 from the field, is doing nothing in preseason. And he's going to make the opening day roster. Like, There are literally thousands of more deserving pro basketball players right now than Bronny James. And it's not even like the potential's there. He's not a point guard. The man is not a point guard. And this is the worst. This is still aging one of the worst tweets. And I get it. I understand. Like, there's a difference between, say, this tweet right here. Bronny definitely better than some of these cats I'm seeing on League Pass today. It's hilarious. Like, the one thing is that there's one thing. It's one thing when you are a supportive dad tweeting about your kid. It's another thing when you get your organization to take him on your team and make sure they play him. Second round picks, 55 picks. No one knows who the 55 picks are in a lot of years. So it's not the end of the world wasting a second round pick. But at the same time, basically being like, well, he has to be on the opening day roster. We've seen in preseason, the guy cannot play NBA basketball. He is so far off the level. Like, I've never seen a player look so out of their depth at the NBA level. And I watched Anthony Bennett after he had the kind of mental breakdown. And by that, I mean, if you've heard any stories about Anthony Bennett, he balled out in Summer League. He balled out where it was like, he just mentally could not deal with the fact that players were better than him. Because it was the first time in his life he was playing against guys better than him at basketball. And he just mentally just couldn't deal with it. And it ruined his career. I've seen Anthony Bennett. And Anthony Bennett's 10 times the player Bronny James is. Bronny James is a guy that if he was LeBron James size, still might not be an NBA player. If LeBron, LeBron's a freak. If he was 6'7", I'm still not sure he's an NBA player. That's the craziest part about this all. And like, we're looking at guys that didn't get drafted. We're looking at so many guys in this draft. We're looking at so many players playing overseas. We're looking at players like, if you know anything about pro basketball is not a glamorous life. These players, there are players 100 times better than Bronny James that are playing in Albania, playing in Azerbaijan, playing in the second tier in Serbia to get their foot in the door, living in a one-bedroom apartment with 3 other pro players, slumming it out, that are better than Bronny James, just trying to get their shot. And as someone that's been around pro players, like I've been around professional, low-level pro basketball my entire adult life. I've seen what some of these guys go through. I've practiced with I've been on teams with these guys. Like, I want him living with me for a while in my box room because they couldn't find anywhere for him to live at one stage. In a 10-foot by, I'll say 8-foot by 4-foot room. And I'm like, this is what these players have to do to get their foot in the door. And you've got Bronny James, who just got a 4-year, $8 million deal. And if he was, obviously after 4 years in college, he might have done well enough to get to the second tier in Serbia as a player. But like, people don't realize that you've got dudes averaging 15 points a game at D1 basketball that can't even sniff like a pro league better than Ireland. And he's just so far off. And look, I get it. There are so many nepotism hires in sports. I don't really have an issue with that much with LeBron James getting his son into that position. I don't really mind him trying to do it. Like, there are nepotism hires. It's like, it is what it is. Bronny James seems like a good kid. LeBron seems like a good dad. But we gotta just be honest here. And he's nowhere close. Like, he is not close to being not close. Like, there are players where you're like, they come into the league and they're not ready. Like, for example, an Alexei Pokusevski, where a lot of people were like, he's got that potential, but like, look, he's nowhere close right now. And then a couple of years later, he's probably close to being a decent NBA player right now. He's probably close to being an NBA level player right now, Pokusevski. And I think in a couple of years back in Serbia, he might be good enough. It happened with the likes of Hazonia. It happened with Janan Musa, where it was like they weren't close when they came in. And then by the time they got close to being good, they were no longer young and they went back to Europe. Bronny James is not close to being not close. Like, there are so many, like, levels of players. Like, Bronny James, again, I've said it, he would not be the best player if he played D3. He may not be a D2 All-American if he played D2 college basketball. He was a bad Division 1 college basketball player. And now you're expecting him to go to a league where the best of the best in the world play, where there is so much of a gap. Like, there is, unless, like, other than, like, EuroLeague and stuff, some of the top leagues, but the gap between NBA and college is so big, and he wasn't good in college. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.